The message lands in the middle of your afternoon, and you read it twice because the first time doesn't feel real. Someone is spreading a version of you that isn't true. Or the test result isn't what you hoped. Or a decision that was never yours to make just got made, and it goes against you. For one long second, there is nowhere to go. You can't out-argue it. You can't outrun it. And the walls of your actual house won't help you, because the thing that's under attack isn't your house. A Roman emperor who had real forts and real walls built along a real frontier wrote himself a note about a different kind of fortress, one that was already his, that no army could reach, and that he kept forgetting to use. This is that note, and where you're actually meant to retreat to when the news arrives. Here is the first line, small and easy to walk past. For nowhere, either with more quiet or more freedom from trouble, does a man retire than into his own soul. Notice the claim. Not the countryside, not a temple, not a friend's house, not sleep. He says the quietest place available to a person is a place that has no address, one you are never actually far from, because you never leave it. Marcus wrote this near the end of his life, mostly on campaign along the Danube frontier, commanding an empire that was, for most of his reign, at war or recovering from plague. He understood forts, real ones, timber and stone, built to keep an actual enemy on the other side of an actual wall. So when he reaches for a citadel as his image for the mind, it isn't decoration. It's the most literal comparison available to a man who had just watched soldiers build one. He is telling himself, you already have what those walls are for. You built it a long time ago, whether you noticed or not. Here is the passage that names what's actually inside the walls. Remember that the ruling faculty is invincible. When self-collected, it is satisfied with itself, if it does nothing which it does not choose to do, even if it resist from mere obstinacy. The Stoics had a word for this, the hegemonikon, the ruling part, the piece of you that judges and decides. Marcus's claim is narrow and exact. That part cannot be broken into. Not because nothing bad can happen to you, but because the one thing an enemy needs from you, your agreement, your consent to be defeated, is the one thing that stays behind the wall, yours to grant or withhold, no matter what's happening outside it. So, what is he actually saying? Not that the diagnosis isn't real, or the rumor won't cost you something, or the decision won't hurt. He is saying the wall was never meant to keep events out. Events get in regardless. That's what a frontier is for. The wall keeps one specific thing safe, the part of you that decides what the event means, and whether you'll let it govern you. Lose the argument, lose the diagnosis, lose the version of the story other people are telling. The Citadel was never holding that ground. It was only ever holding the ground where you decide who you still are afterward. Which brings us to the sentence the whole passage is built around. Therefore the mind which is free from passions is a citadel, for man has nothing more secure to which he can fly for refuge, and for the future be inexpugnable. Inexpugnable, a word that means, roughly, unable to be taken by force, not undamaged, not untouched, unconquered. A citadel under siege still hears the siege. The walls still take the weather. What Marcus is promising is narrower and more honest than peace of mind. He's promising a room that cannot be occupied by anyone but you. This is where the citadel gets misread. Taken loosely, free from passions, sounds like a wall built to keep feeling in, go numb, seal the doors, let nothing move. That is not a citadel. That is a prison. And Marcus, who wrote pages about grief and irritation and disappointment in his own hand, was clearly not living in one. A citadel keeps a specific enemy out. Panic that outruns the facts. The story that turns a setback into a verdict on your worth. The fear that makes you agree to a version of events you haven't actually checked. The garrison inside is still allowed to feel the siege. It just doesn't have to open the gate to it. So Marcus ends with a warning, and it has two parts. He then who has not seen this is an ignorant man, but he who has seen it and does not fly to this refuge is unhappy. Two separate failures, and they are not equally forgivable. The first is simply not knowing the fortress exists, an honest gap, closed the moment you read a passage like this one. The second is worse, knowing exactly where the gate is and standing outside it anyway, letting the noise of the siege decide things the citadel was built to protect. That is the failure this whole passage was written to prevent, in himself first, before anyone else. So here is the retreat, in a form you can actually use the next time the message lands. First, name what's under attack, precisely. Usually it isn't the outcome, the diagnosis, the rumor, the decision. It's your read of what that outcome means about you. Separate the two out loud in one sentence each. Second, ask the Citadel's only real question. What in this is still entirely mine to decide? Not what you wish were true. What is actually still yours? Your next action, your judgment, your reply, or the choice to make none yet. That is the whole retreat. Not leaving the room, not feeling nothing. Just remembering, in the middle of the siege, which ground was never actually contested. The message is still there when you look back at it. The diagnosis doesn't change, the rumor doesn't stop moving, the decision stands. But something else is also still there, unreached, exactly where it was before you opened the message. The part of you that decides what happens next. Marcus never said the siege wouldn't come. He built real walls for exactly that reason. He only asked himself to remember, before the gate gave way to panic, that he had somewhere better to stand. I'm glad you sat with this one. If it was worth your quiet, stay a while. There is one idea here every day.